My new neighbor, Ilara, seemed perfect. Almost too perfect. The kind of person who brings you a still warm apple pie the day she moves in, remembers your name instantly, and has a smile that could probably charm a snake. For the first few weeks, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. Our little cul-de-sac had been a bit sleepy, and her arrival was a breath of fresh air. We'd chat over the fence while I watered my sad-looking petunias and she tended to a garden that had blossomed into a paradise overnight. She was a freelance graphic designer, she said. Worked from home, enjoyed the quiet. Her house, which had been on the market for ages, was suddenly immaculate. Not a single weed in the lawn, not a speck of dust on the windows. It was impressive. She'd laugh off my compliments with a wave of her hand. "Oh, I just like things tidy." Her laugh was like wind chimes, a delicate, pleasant sound. She was just nice, unnervingly nice. The first crack in that perfect facade was tiny, so small I almost dismissed it. We were having coffee on her porch one sunny Saturday. The conversation was light, just the usual neighborhood gossip. I was mid-sentence, complaining about the squirrels stealing my tomatoes, when a bee buzzed a little too close to her face. I flinched, expecting her to do the same. But she didn't. She just stopped. Her head tilted ever so slightly, her smile frozen in place. And then her eyes blinked, not up and down, sideways. It was like a camera shutter closing from the sides, a thin, pale membrane sweeping across her irises from the inner and outer corners of her eyes, meeting in the middle for a split second before retracting. It was so fast, so utterly bizarre, that my brain refused to process it. I must have imagined it. A trick of the light, the sun in my eyes, maybe I needed new glasses. I blinked hard myself, up and down, the normal way. When I looked back, she was smiling at me, her big green eyes perfectly normal. "Squirrels can be such a nuisance, can't they?" she said, as if nothing had happened. I mumbled an agreement, my coffee suddenly tasting bitter. I tried to forget it. I really did. But it was like an itch I couldn't scratch. Every time I saw her after that, I found myself staring at her eyes, waiting. For days, nothing. She blinked normally. She smiled, she laughed. She was the perfect Ilara. I started to relax, convincing myself I'd had a momentary lapse in sanity. Maybe I was just stressed from work. Then came the block party. The whole street was out, grills smoking, kids running around with water guns. Ilara, naturally, was the life of the party. She'd brought a 7-layer dip that was practically a work of art. I was standing near the drinks table talking to old Mr. Henderson from down the street when a frisbee went sailing past my head and crashed into the table, sending a pitcher of lemonade flying. Everyone jumped. Liquid splashed everywhere. In the chaos, my eyes, as if on autopilot, locked onto Ilara. She was standing perfectly still amidst the sudden flurry of motion. Her head was cocked to the side again, that same eerie stillness from the coffee incident. And then it happened again. Blink. Sideways. This time I was sure. There was no sun in my eyes, no trick of the light. A nictitating membrane like a reptile's or a bird's flashed across her eyes. A cold dread, sharp and icy, washed over me. It was real. My heart hammered against my ribs. I had to get away, had to think. I made a clumsy excuse to Mr. Henderson and practically ran back to my house, locking the door behind me. I sank onto my sofa, my mind racing. Who, what, was she? I pulled out my laptop and started searching. People who blink sideways. Human-reptile hybrids. Aliens who look human. The search results were a rabbit hole of conspiracy theories and crackpot websites. It all seemed ridiculous, insane. But then I'd picture that sideways blink, and the insanity felt terrifyingly real. I started watching her. Not just casually, but obsessively. I'd peer through my blinds, watching her move through her house. She never seemed to sleep. The lights in her home were on at all hours, but I never saw her shadow pass the windows late at night. She moved with a grace that was just a little too fluid, a little too controlled. One evening I saw her in her garden at dusk. She was standing over a rose bush, her hand hovering just above a perfect crimson bloom. She didn't touch it. She just stood there, completely still, for almost an hour. It was the most unnatural thing I'd ever seen. A human would have fidgeted, shifted their weight, something. Ilara was like a statue. The fear was starting to consume me. I was jumping at shadows, barely sleeping. I knew I couldn't go to the police. What would I say? My neighbor blinks weird. They'd think I was crazy. I felt utterly alone. Was I the only one who saw it? Did anyone else notice how her garden grew 3 times faster than anyone else's? Or how she never, ever seemed to get cold, even wearing a thin blouse on a chilly autumn evening? My paranoia hit its peak a week later. I was taking out my trash late one night, my heart pounding with every rustle of leaves. As I pushed my bin to the curb, I glanced at her house. The porch light was off, the house dark except for a single dim light in an upstairs window. And there, standing in the shadows of her porch, was Ilara. She wasn't moving, just standing there, watching me. I froze, the plastic handle of the bin slippery in my sweaty palm. I couldn't see her face clearly in the dark, but I could feel her eyes on me. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that she knew I'd been watching her, that she knew that I knew. I wanted to run, but my feet felt like they were glued to the pavement. Slowly, she stepped out of the shadows and into the weak moonlight. A faint smile played on her lips, but it didn't reach her eyes. She took a step towards me, then another. The silence of the night was deafening. "Can't sleep, Alex?" she asked. Her voice was the same melodic chime, but now it sounded like shattered glass to my ears. "Just taking out the trash," I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. She tilted her head, the same gesture that now filled me with absolute terror. "You've been very watchful lately," she said, her voice dropping lower. "Is something troubling you?" This was it, the moment of truth. My mind screamed at me to lie, to make an excuse, to run. But I was paralyzed by a morbid curiosity that was stronger than my fear. I had to know. "Your eyes," I blurted out. They blink sideways." The smile on her face vanished. The friendly neighbor facade dissolved, leaving behind something cold, ancient, and utterly alien. She didn't respond for a long moment. The wind rustled the trees, the only sound in the suffocating silence. Then, very slowly, she did it. She looked right at me and blinked. Not up and down, but from the sides. The pale membranes swept across her green eyes deliberately this time, a slow, predatory gesture. It wasn't a trick. It wasn't my imagination. It was a confirmation. "We find it helps keep the dust out," she said, her voice no longer a pleasant melody but a flat, toneless statement. "Earth is a very dusty planet." She took another step closer, and for the first time, I noticed the strange, subtle pattern on her skin, almost like faint, iridescent scales that shimmered under the moonlight. My perfect neighbor wasn't just strange. She wasn't human at all. And I had the terrifying feeling that my life on this quiet little cul-de-sac was about to change forever. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I know this was a longer story, and I really appreciate you sticking with it. If you enjoyed this journey into the unsettling and the strange, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. I'd love to hear your theories in the comments below. What do you think Ilara is? Until next time, stay curious and maybe keep a closer eye on your neighbors.